World Food Programme's following the US in suspending food aid to Ethiopia after finding massive theft of previous donations. The WFP's decision is temporary, and it says that it's boosting its monitoring of supplies. USAID, though, hasn't shared who was behind the diversions of food aid to Tigray, but says that it appeared to involve collusion between both sides in the conflict between the federal government and rebels from the northern region. The devastating two-year war ended in November, but the fallout continues. As well as sparking a vast humanitarian crisis, new figures suggest that over 100,000 people died, taking the world conflict-related death toll to a 28-year high. Clotilde Hazard has more.
55 conflicts have been recorded last year in the world, and almost half of them, 27 precisely, took place on the African continent. What's killing so many people last year is not the number of conflicts, but their intensity, especially the Ethiopian conflict in Tigray. Let's listen to Siri Asrustad, director researcher taking part in the Uppsala Conflict Data Program.
Compared to 2021, the battle-related deaths more than doubled. So in 2021, it was recorded 87,000. And in 2022, it was recorded 204,000. This is the highest number since 1984. It doesn't mean that the general conflict landscape has intensified, but we have a few really intense conflicts. And this year we had two. We had both Ukraine and Ethiopia.
Data collection for the conflict in Ethiopia has been particularly difficult because of the blocking of internet and the ban of journalists covering the conflict. The estimate of 100,000 battle-related deaths is primarily based on the NGO's work, and it doesn't count all the indirect casualties, those people who died of hunger and disease and lack of medical infrastructure. There is no official count, and the only independent assessment has been made at the end of 2022 by the Belgium University of Gand, estimating the number of deaths between 385,000 and 600,000. And even today, Tigray's authority reports that many civilians are still suffering and dying from the lack of food, one of the consequences of the conflict.
There's a quote that's been attributed to political scientist Henry Kissinger. It goes, "Who controls the food supply controls the people." Now, whether or not Kissinger actually said that doesn't take away from the fact that food, like water, can be a powerful bargaining tool for people and governments alike, despite being considered a human right by the UN. So just how powerful is food? The biggest agricultural exporters in the world are the EU and the US, which together account for roughly $300 billion a year. Each nearly doubles Brazil's exports and triples China's. The EU's high ranking, however, is almost entirely due to the Netherlands, who are the second largest food exporter in the world after the US. Additionally, many staple foods are overwhelmingly produced by a single country. For example, as much as 40% of the world's corn is grown in the United States, and just over a quarter of the world's rice is grown in China. With only a few players controlling the world's food, they end up wielding a great deal of international power. In 1976, the US Secretary of Agriculture said, "Food is a weapon," alluding to the use of food to promote US goals and as a tool against difficult countries. For example, in 2012, the US offered North Korea some much-needed food aid in exchange for suspending their nuclear program. Then, after North Korea attempted to launch a long-range rocket later that year, the US rescinded their aid offer. However, attempts at food embargo since the 1960s have mostly fallen flat, as the global economy has made it possible to maintain supply, and international pressure has criticized the ethics of restricting food. On the flip side, Russia's recent ban on food imports in response to EU sanctions has had a strong effect on food producers. In Germany, pig farmers, who alone supply a quarter of Russia's pork, are expected to lose out on 40,000 euros per farm this year. The status and control of food on an international level cannot be understated. But using food as a political tool has been met with mixed results, and restricting access to food has regularly been frowned on and legislated against. So how powerful is food? Powerful, but not always for the right reasons.